Alright, the time has finally come for the finale of Vecna, Eve of Ruin. Today we're going over Chapter 11, Eve of Ruin. I'm Dad the Dungeon Master, I've been a DM for over a decade, I am a published author, and I have run this campaign already. I actually ran this chapter twice to make sure I could give you guys good advice, and I have made every mistake, and I'm going to help you guys avoid those. So let's dig in. At the start of this chapter, your characters are level 20. They just defeated Cass, learned the location of Vecna's ritual, and there is nothing stopping them from going there and defeating Vecna and saving the multiverse. There are no more secrets for the Power of Secrets mechanic. This is the part of the book where you use those secrets. You spin them finally if you've saved any. I did a totally different take on the secrets mechanic. You can check out that video here, and I will explain how I used that when we get to that point. So the book explains that because your party has this link to Vecna, that as soon as they learn the location of the ritual, they can teleport there from anywhere in the multiverse. I don't like this, and I think the book also understands why this is a problem, because in the book it says, after your characters learn about the location of the ritual, sometime later, which there's no real reason to wait, it should be immediately, they will receive a sending message from Astral encouraging them to go back to Sigil, and the book even says, encourage your players to go back to Sigil before they take off to go confront Vecna. The book's reasons for sending you back to Sigil, though, don't make a whole lot of sense. The book's reasoning is so that Astral and Tasha can give the party some information, but all of the information that they have them give the party, they really have no way that they could possibly know. And if they did know it, they should have told your players a lot sooner. But either way, your party should go back to Sigil. The location of Vecna's ritual is in the plane of Pandesmos. The way that I handled it, instead of them just being able to teleport at will whenever they felt like it, and Astral just begging them to come back to Sigil, is I didn't say that they could teleport immediately. I said that on foot to get there would take days because it's a huge plane. But if they made the trip back to the portal where they came from Sigil, they could then go through the portal again to get to Vecna's grasp in just a couple hours, so it would save a lot of time. The information that the book wants you to have Astral and Tasha give the party is that there are these 3 Demiplanes that Vecna has already created as he begins trying to rework reality, and these 3 Demiplanes are harbingers of the doom to come, and that you have to destroy them to get to the Cave of Shattered Reflections, which is where the ritual is happening, and that there are these manifested secrets that have a symbol of Vecna on the object, and your party has to find these objects and use them to end each of these unrealities. And they will explain that the Cave of Shattered Reflections wards against all teleportation inside Vecna's grasp, except for the special teleportation that your party can do because of their Vecna's link. Like I said, them knowing all this doesn't make any sense. And your party can figure these things out as they go, and I think it's more satisfying that way. So after my party got back to Sigil, instead of having Astral and Tasha tell them all that, because your party just went through this whole big battle, they've drained a bunch of their resources, they need to get refreshed, they need to get a long rest in order to have the necessary resources to even take on Vecna. But the tension is supposed to be ramping up. They're supposed to be racing to stop Vecna before he finishes this ritual. So you don't really want to be like, yeah, it's fine if you take a long rest. Vecna will still be waiting. That is lame, and it hurts the pacing. So what I did was I had Astral reveal that she had this dangerous magic chamber that she had constructed, and that if the party was willing to risk it, they could potentially get a long rest in about 10 minutes. But it's dangerous, it is volatile magic, that's why she didn't bring it up before, but with this situation being as dire as it is, it's time to pull out all the stops, and she is willing to let the party attempt to use it if they are willing to. Both of the parties I ran it for were gung-ho, let's get a long rest. That's a super powerful benefit. So I made it a DC 20 con saving throw, and if they succeeded, they got a long rest. If they failed, I still gave them a long rest, but they took a point of exhaustion. If they failed by more than 10, I actually had the chamber age them 3d6 years, which unless one of your party members is playing a really old human wizard, this isn't really a big deal. It's just a flavor thing. And we're running up to the very end of the chapter. This is a level 20 mission. Your party is never going to play as these characters again. So it's kind of okay at this point for them to have things that will stick with their characters forever, because forever's not going to be that long. And thematically, it's really cool to like fight through these things to the end. You want your characters to have scars after this. You want them to have been changed forever by the events that led to them saving the world. Think of the finale of any of your favorite fantasy books or TV shows or movies. The heroes suffer some setbacks. They suffer some life-changing alterations in order to succeed. So once your party teleports to Vecna's grasp, they'll end up in this chamber with this huge cluster of crystals in the middle, and reflected on all these crystals is seen from the 3 demiplanes around them. There are 3 tunnels that lead off away from this main chamber, and as they travel through each one of those tunnels, they'll see reflections of that specific demiplane, and once they travel 50 feet down the tunnels, they'll be teleported into that demiplane, and they won't be able to get out until they interact with that demiplane's manifested secret. There is a typo in the book where at first talks about Vecna's grasp, and it says that once you get rid of those demiplanes and it shatters those crystals, that it opens the way to the cave of crystal reflections. I was like, wait a second, are there 2? No, it's not. It's the Cave of Shattered Reflections. There's one place where it says Cave of Crystal Reflections at the top left of page 192. Just ignore that. It's an accidental typo. It slipped through the editors. No big deal. It happens. The features for Vecna's grasp are that the ceiling in this main area is 40 feet high and 10 feet high in the tunnels. It is dark, so descriptions assume your characters have a light source or dark vision. And there is no teleportation possible in this area other than the initial teleportation where your characters come in here, and they can only do that because of their Vecna's link. The walls and floor and ceilings are made of magically reinforced obsidian. There are stats in the book to destroy the obsidian if you really wanted to, but it doesn't lead anywhere, so I'm not sure why they included that in there. Area E1 is the Kaleidoscope Cave with that big cluster of crystals that are reflecting all the different scenes from the different demiplanes. Areas E2, A, B, and C are the tunnels that lead to the different demiplanes. Your party can do them in any order. It's really not a big deal. Area E2A is called the Torment of Cass. It depicts Kioland, which is the homeland of Cass on Earth. It always seems like the sun is setting, the sky is red, and when you land, you see a castle silhouetted in the distance and 2 large hulking figures moving around. There's this weird like spatial puzzle where if you head towards the castle, it actually seems to get further away, and the only way to get closer to the castle is to actually walk towards the sun. If your party is having trouble figuring this out, you can actually make a DC 15 Arcana check and realize that because Cass is a vampire and the sun is like the enemy of vampires, that Vecna did this as like one more insult to Cass. So if your party succeeds on that roll or figures it out, they walk towards the sun, and that gets them closer to the castle. Area K1 is the ruined Bailey. There are 2 huge hulking cadaver collectors picking around through the debris. The book says they attack on sight. The first time I ran this, the party's assassin Rogue, who used to be Cass in disguise, hid. The party was like, hey guys, over here. They walked toward him. He jumped out, killed one of the cadaver collectors on the first round. We rolled initiative. Everybody went before the cadaver collectors. They waylaid the other one and destroyed them both before they even got a turn. The second time I ran it, we just ran this chapter. The group that I was running it for, I told them make level 20 characters specifically to fight Vecna. They didn't play the rest of the campaign. I just ran it again for them so that I could have more perspective. And they did not have a rogue. They had a cleric, a paladin, a wizard, and a fighter. So they actually fought these guys. And with them summoning their specters, with them having a decent chunk of HP, and with this group trying to save all of their resources for Vecna, it was a little bit tough. It wasn't like tough like they almost lost, but they did drain some HP. They did lose some resources fighting them, as opposed to the group with the rogue who just basically took them out all at once. Area K2, the statues of Vecna. There's just these 6 statues of Vecna in lordly poses. If you attack one of them, it does some psychic damage. Both of my parties just walked right by them. They didn't feel the need to be spiteful and attack these statues. Partially probably also because they know this isn't real. Area K3 is the receiving room. In here, it looks like a throne room sort of, with a Death Knight just standing there like his arms crossed, looking angry, but he doesn't make any aggressive move against the party unless they're trying to leave from K4 or K5. So both my parties just walked right by him, kind of eyed him suspiciously, kind of edged the room, but he didn't attack them, they didn't attack him, so they just went right by him. Area K4 is the Fountain of Blood. There's just this well filled with blood. If you look in it, you can see an image of Vecna performing his ritual. If your party slays the image of Cass in the next room, a new one will like emerge from this pool of blood and take his place. That's pretty cool, pretty creepy, but neither of my parties were witness to that because neither of them ended up killing Cass. Again, Vecna included this as an insult because the Cass in this demiplane knows this fountain of blood is here, wants to drink from it, but can't because he's shackled in the next room. Area K5 is Cass's chamber. Cass is here. Obviously, it's not the real Cass because you guys defeated him in the last chapter. It's this Demiplane's image of Cass. He has shackles on his hands and feet, and they're chained to a huge adamantine ball, and he has the sword of Cass on his back. Obviously not the real sword. My party has that sword. Your party should probably have that sword, but he has an image of it, and on that sword is the symbol of Vecna. The book says that it's a DC 25 persuasion check to convince Cass to give you the sword, but that if you explain to him that this isn't reality, that it's a reflection, a creation of Vecna, that he will willingly give you the sword. But there's really no way for him to physically stop the party from taking it since he's shackled. I had both my parties roll this check. One succeeded, one failed, and the one that failed just took it from him anyways. Basically, what I suggest is you have a fun roleplay moment here. Your party isn't going to be as invested in this interaction because they know it isn't real. They know that this is a conjured demiplane, that this isn't even the real Cass. So it's like a very meta, like Inception, like layers deep. Like I know we're playing D&D and none of it's real already, but it doesn't even feel real the way D&D normally feels real. It feels like it's 2 layers deep in Inception. So they're not going to care about Cass. They're just going to take the sword no matter what happens. So, and then once they take the sword, your party will realize that in order to destroy one of these manifested secrets, in order to get rid of this demiplane, they either have to expend a 7th level spell slot or higher, or one of the charges from the Rod of 7 Parts. Neither one of the parties used their own spell slots. They both used the charge from the Rod of 7 Parts, and I think that's the obvious choice. So they both zapped it, they both destroyed this demiplane, headed back to Vecna's grasp, and made their way to the next tunnel. Area E2B is called Neverwinter's New King. In this unreality, Vecna has turned Lord Neverember into a Death Knight and given him total control over the city of Neverwinter, which he's already in charge of Neverwinter, but whatever. He's standing up on this balcony, and he's wearing a crown, and the crown has Vecna's symbol on it. It's the object, the manifested secret. Down below his little balcony are 12 wights, and out in front of them is 4 gallows. I would put a number of gallows equal to the number of players. I ran it for 4 both times, so this worked out well. Typically, D&D adventures are balanced for 4 characters, and then there's a crowd, like a mob of people, and they're all just basically like here to see the hangings, I guess. If your party just goes straight to trying to get the crown from Lord Neverember, the 12 wights will attack. Your party will have to deal with them. The Death Knight up above, which Death Knights have this Hellfire Orb, which is like a worse than Fireball, and it's not a spell, so it can't be counterspelled. He will throw that first. He doesn't care about hurting these citizens. But if your party succeeds on a DC 15 persuasion check, they can actually incite the mob, and they will keep the 12 wights occupied and allow the party to deal with Lord Neverember. Again, I learned some things about how useful having a rogue is. The party with the rogue, they turned him invisible. He scaled the wall, snuck up, grabbed the crown off of the Death Knight's head, and then dove off the balcony. The cleric ran up and caught him, and then the moment he caught him, he used the charge from the rod, destroyed it. They basically used no resources here except for the 1 invisibility spell. The other party, they did incite the mob, so they didn't have to deal with the 12 wights, but the Death Knight threw that orb, cost him some HP, and then they attacked him with range attacks. The Paladin ran up and jumped and climbed up on the balcony, smacked him with his sword, took the crown, and they got out of there. So again, having a rogue saves a lot of resources, at least in this chapter of this adventure. This is definitely the least in-depth of the 3 demiplanes. Area E2C contains the demiplane Dead Gods. When your party goes in here, they are floating in the Astral Sea. There's this gigantic, horrifying monster called an Astral Dreadnought. In this unreality, Vecna has defeated all of the other gods, turned their bodies to stone, and sent them adrift in the Astral Sea, and this Astral Dreadnought has been feeding on them. His name is Arachans. Well, Arachans is currently being attacked by 6 eye-mongers, which are like, look like asteroids. If their eye and mouth weren't open, you'd just think they were asteroids, but they're these weird astral plane creatures. So 6 of these eye-mongers are attacking Arachans, the Astral Dreadnought. He's down to only 150 HP, and he won't use any of his abilities other than visit Donjon. Astral Dreadnoughts have a demiplane inside their gullet. If they swallow somebody, they get teleported to that demiplane, or if he uses his ability Visit Donjon, they're teleported to that demiplane for 1 round. I get the idea that they want your party to go visit that demiplane, but if they approach and he does Visit Donjon, they're only there for 1 round and come back, so they won't have the time to find the manifested secret, which your party can see the manifested secret through walls and everything, so they know it's inside the Astral Dreadnought. So they would have to get swallowed in order to stay there for more than 1 round and have time to get the object, and why would your party want to get swallowed? On top of that, with a DC 15 Arcana check, your party realizes that if the Astral Dreadnought is destroyed, that his donjon ceases to exist, and everything that was inside of it is set adrift on the Astral Sea. So both of my parties stayed back and actually helped the Eyemongers destroy the Astral Dreadnought. The book says as long as you don't interfere with them, they won't attack you. And then once the Dreadnought was dead and everything came out of its stomach, they dealt with what happened next. So inside the Demiplane of the Donjon is 3 more Eyemongers and a Cosmic Horror. So when that happens, I have the Cosmic Horror and the Eyemongers start fighting each other. And the statue that has the manifested secret is down there in amongst the combat. So if they want to get it, they're going to have to go in the midst of that. The first group, the sorcerer, cast animate object on the statue and just had it fly over to them. The second group waited to see who won the combat, which it was the Cosmic Horror. I basically just said they fought for a while and it was down to 100 HP when it turned its attention on them. They fought it. They dealt with it pretty easy, though it is a tough enemy, but they're level 20. Level 20 parties can do some crazy stuff. But for the sake of you being able to run this how you want to run it, I will go through the Donjon locations, though I highly doubt any of your parties are going to go in there. So in the Donjon, there's this weird terrain. You're basically on one mound, and then there's like a gap, and then there's a sword of a huge dead god laying across it, so it's like a bridge. And then on the other side is like this dais with a statue on it. That's where your party needs to go. That's where the manifested secret is. Area G1 is called the Crumbling Mound. It's called that because if you get inside this dotted line area, the ground falls out from under you. It's a DC 13 dex save. If you fail, you fall 100 feet down to the cavern below and take 10 d6 bludgeoning damage. Chances are your party's not going to fail a DC 13 save at this point. Also, there's no reason to even walk over there. Area G2 is the Sword Bridge. As your party crosses it, this is where the 3 Eyemongers would attack the party. So they'll have this little combat with these 3 Eyemongers on this bridge. Area G3 is called the Horror's Fissure. It's just this 30-foot deep fissure that they have to cross to get over to where the statue is. At this point, when your party's down there, is when the Cosmic Horror would come out and attack your party, trying to destroy their bodies and their minds. Area G4 is the Shrine of Habakkuk. There's this cobalt blue statue, human-like body, avian head. It is the god Habakkuk from the world of Kryn. He's a god of wild animals and druids, and he has a blue feather sticking out of his side. That is the object that is the manifested secret. So once all that's done, your party will get teleported back to Vecna's grasp for the last time. That big mound of crystals in the middle will just crack and shatter into a million pieces and burst out of the way. And as it does, wind and specters of secrets will come shooting out, and there's this horrifying howl, and below it is a 500-foot drop down to the Cave of Shattered Reflections. The features of the Cave of Shattered Reflections are the crystal walls are immune to all damage, and they stop sound from passing through, including the Chime of Exile. There's also these diamond doors. At certain areas you can see on the map are these rubies and crystals on either side of a door. Other than the one in area R2, which has 2 rubies, and it just transports people to the other side, it functions basically like a regular door. The rest of them are labeled. There's A1 and A2, all the way through E1 and E2. If you touch a ruby on A1, it takes you to the ruby on A2. If you touch the sapphire on A1, it takes you to the sapphire on A2, and etc. The rubies connect to the rubies with the same letter, and the sapphires connect to the sapphires with the same letter. This entire area is bathed in an eerie purple light, and as long as Vecna is working on his ritual, there is no teleportation other than his Fell Rebuke. The purpose is to stop your party from just misty stepping or some other feature into the room with Vecna, but I don't know why they specify that his Fell Rebuke works, because if he stops his ritual to fight the party, then all teleportation would work. Or if they mean that his ritual continues as he fights the party and his Fell Rebuke is the only teleportation that works, that actually will stop one of his other abilities from working, and it would really hurt your party. This fight with Vecna it's sickening. I'll get into it in a minute. There's also a chart for extra benefits that your party gets depending on how many secrets they kept from that Power of Secrets mechanic. I'll throw the chart up over here if you're using the regular Power of Secrets mechanic. I basically did the same thing, except since each one of my party members had a single secret, for each one that gave up their secret, they got moved down this chart 1 level. Both of my parties, nobody ever gave up their secrets. Obviously, one of the parties only ran this chapter, so they didn't really have to worry about it. But the battle with Vecna is tough, and if they don't get some of these benefits, it's going to be really tough. So area R1 is the Shattered Grotto. This is where your party will land at the bottom of that 500-foot drop. Both of the parties I ran for had the Feathered Fall spell, so that's how they both got down. For most parties, by the time they're level 20, a 500-foot drop is not going to be that big of an inconvenience. But if they do have to climb, it's a DC 20 athletics check in order to get down the walls. And obviously, if they fall, they're taking all those D6s of damage. Remember that technically, rules as written, falling damage maxes out at 20 D6. So if the worst happens and one of your party members has to climb and they fall, they are not going to die from this fall, not as a level 20 character. The bad part about it is, when they reach the bottom, 2 Death Knights manifest. And as I mentioned earlier, they have those Hellfire Orbs. That's the strongest thing they have. They're both going to do that as soon as their turn happens. So your party's all going to have to make dex saves because this is a small area. They're all going to be in the area of effect for both of those attacks. It's going to, whether your party succeeds or fails, drain a bunch of their HP. This is a tough little battle with 2 Death Knights. Your party definitely has some tricks up their sleeves. Level 20 characters can do a lot of interesting stuff, but this is going to drain some of their resources. Both of my parties fought these guys. They both defeated them. They both took a second to heal after they defeated these guys before they moved on. Area R2 is called the Threshold. It has the first diamond door. Like I said, you just go straight to the other side of it. When you're on the other side of it, there's this psychic hum that's just buzzing. It's not loud enough to cause damage, but it will further down. Before you go through the door, the first character that approaches it, there is this strange reflection, and everything about the reflection looks normal except they have this twisted sneer. And when that party member gets close to the diamond door, it's actually a mirror shade. The book says they will attack the party member once and then flee. They can travel along reflective surfaces. Area R3 is the ritual chamber. It's this whole section on this side of the map. Even though there are separate divided areas with crystal walls, this whole section is R3. Your party will have to figure out how these sapphires and rubies connect. If your party can see through the walls, which they probably will be able to, they'll be able to see Vecna in that central area conducting his ritual. And even if they can't, it won't take them that long to figure out that they probably need to get into that middle area. Figuring out how to get into this central area isn't that difficult. When this becomes a problem is once combat with Vecna starts. And he starts teleporting around and your party's having to try and figure out how to move through this area in the heat of combat with these strange, not going where they're supposed to go doors. One of the problems with this area is that psychic hum is amplified. Every character that starts their turn here has to make a DC 20 wisdom save or take 1d10 psychic damage. This is every turn for the rest of the time you're in here, whether you're fighting Vecna or walking around, whatever. There's this constant psychic hum that is draining your characters. It's like on a video game when you go to an area that's like super cold and your health bar is just ticking down over time. That's what's happening here. The book also says there are 4 mirror shades in here that their job is to stop you from getting to Vecna and disrupting his ritual. It says there are only 3 if you destroyed the one in area R2, but that also doesn't really make any sense because it says that the one in R2 attacks once and flees. So unless you take an attack of opportunity and deal 91 damage in a single hit, there's always going to be 4 in here. The way that I ran it is I didn't have the mirror shades attack until your party made it to the central area, at which point I had the 4 mirror shades be a reflection of each of the 4 people, and they came out and fought themselves essentially, but it was with mirror shade stats. It's not as bad as like actually fighting a copy of yourself. That would be horrible at this point with Vecna right there. And the book says that Vecna just continues his ritual and ignores the party until they directly interact with him. The way I did it, once they got in the central area, their reflections attacked them, and Vecna's still just up there with this black hole orb in front of him, doing his rituals, sucking in magic and secrets, empowering this horrifying recreation of the multiverse that he's working on, just completely ignoring that your party's over here fighting these 4 reflections of themselves until your party defeats them, at which point Vecna is going to turn to him. As always, you want bad guys to talk before combat, and this is the finale of your campaign. Vecna needs to say some sinister, haunting lines, a lot like the way they had Cass say things about the adventure during their combat. You need to take some time and look at your characters' backstories and figure out things that Vecna would say and know, because he's hyper intelligent. He's super ultra intelligent, and with the Vecna link and with his ability to scry, he knows everything about your party. That's part of the reason why it should be so difficult for them to defeat him. But he should say hurtful, insightful things and even reveal the secrets that they've kept from each other, and why those secrets, if you can figure out how to word it properly, why those secrets or parts of their backstory would cause rifts in your party. He would try to make them feel negative feelings towards each other. And at some point during this interaction, your party's going to have had enough and they're going to kick it off. Don't make Vecna attack first. Pacing-wise, feeling-wise, emotional-wise, continue to push your players, push their buttons until they have had enough and they start it off. That'll be more satisfying narratively. So the book says you want to get Vecna down to under 50 HP, then use the Chime of Exile. That's fine if you want to do that. Vecna in his stat block, it also said that if he's defeated, he will reform back on O-Earth. No big deal. I understand why Wizards of the Coast did that. Vecna is one of their most popular villains. They want him to exist for future publications. I'm not Wizards of the Coast. I'm probably never going to run Vecna again. So if you've watched all these videos, you know that I had Tasha explain to my party that if they reunite Vecna with his hand and eye and slay him with the Sword of Cast, he will be destroyed forever. So both my parties did that, which reuniting with his hand and eye would make him even more powerful, but he is strong enough. I actually never even used any of the abilities from the hand or eye, and things were still rough. So this combat with Vecna, I have a whole video talking about it before I ran it, back when I had just read the book and read through the fight and everything, and I make some good points in here, but experience is the greatest teacher, and I learned some new things. My first party, the party that had gone through this entire adventure, got TPK'd for a really specific reason. Vecna has a few things that make him practically unbeatable. And I kind of was sort of upset about it when we ran the combat the first time, because I was like, there's no way to beat Vecna. There's no way. And then I had the other group create characters specifically to fight Vecna, and I thought it was going to happen again. It was almost by chance that we figured out how you can defeat Vecna, because he has these abilities that let him teleport around, and with the crystal walls and with the doors that don't function right, it's almost impossible for your party to get to him. And obviously he's hyper intelligent, so he's going to use that to his advantage. So he's teleporting around. He has a reaction that lets him teleport. He can teleport as a bonus action. He heals HP when he uses that bonus action teleport. So with that movement and with these doors not functioning properly, it's almost impossible to get to him. And if you hit him is when he can use that reaction to teleport. So if you're a fighter, you only get one hit before he teleports away. And it was super frustrating for my first party. I mean, it was frustrating for the second party. But what ended up happening with the second party is that the cleric had an 8th level holy aura running, and Vecna and the paladin were basically in one of these side rooms by themselves, and he attacked the paladin with his dagger, and he had already burned through all of his legendary resistances, and he failed a save that caused him to be blinded. At that point, I double checked his abilities, and both of his teleportation abilities say that it's to a point that he can see. So I, for a while, during the TPK with the first party and during the combat with the second party, was like, the designers of this book made this combat incredibly difficult. I don't know if they did it on purpose, but I think they might have accidentally made it impossible because of that healing 80 HP from the teleportation, and because the way this is set up, some of these little rooms, if he teleports in there, there's 2 doors between the party and him, and they don't go where they're supposed to go. So your party's having to try and figure out how to teleport to get to him, and it's just a huge hassle. And he can obviously see through the walls. His magic can go through the walls. Also, his abilities are not spells. He has spells, but his best abilities are just abilities, so you can't counterspell them. So for a while, I was like, man, they made it super cool, but it's impossible. Then we realized if he's blinded, that's like his Achilles heel. He can't do his teleportation. At that point, the paladin that was in the room with him just dumped all his smites and was able to basically kill him in 1 turn, which he was already hurt, but he was able to get the rest of the damage done in 1 turn, and the paladin had the Sword of Cast. So they defeated him once and for all. So if the designers of this book specifically designed it to be a puzzle where blinding him is the answer, and your party has to be smart enough to figure that out in order to defeat them, that is brilliant. That is crappy in the fact that that's the only way that I can possibly conceive that you can defeat him, but it's brilliant in that it matches Vecna's story, it matches Vecna's character perfectly, that defeating him isn't combat, it's a puzzle. Like I said, the problem is if you don't do that specific thing, I can't think of any other way to defeat him. So I added some bells and whistles the first time also as far as TPKing the party. I did some of the things I suggested in that other video. I had rips in reality. I had their family members there that had been mind warped by Vecna to fight against them. The second time I ran it, I just ran it straight. I ran it just Vecna with his abilities the way it is in the book, and it was still going poorly. That party used a ton of resources. They used all their 9th level spells. The cleric used a 9th level mass heal. And if he hadn't had that holy aura on, they would not have thought of blinding him. So what I am going to do the next time I run it is, maybe not at first, but after a couple times of him teleporting around, I would kind of hint to your players that he looks for where he's teleporting and then teleports, because both of his teleportation abilities say to a location that he can see. This battle with Vecna, it seems like to me that the way it is when you're low levels, there's kind of like it can go bad, it can go good, and it kind of is like that. The higher level you get, the more it can go bad and the more it can go good, and the more violently it swings. So at 20th level, if Vecna rolls the worst initiative, and depending on the way he teleports, you might be able to defeat him super quick. Obviously, that will not be satisfying for your party, and with his teleportation reaction and having 3 of them, I don't think they will, because he's going to teleport out of the room. The second party, it was an archer fighter, because we tried to make the most busted party we could, and he shot him once, Vecna teleported out, he went back through the door, shot him again, Vecna teleported to another room, so at best he got 2 attacks on him. So really the only way I think to defeat him is to solve the puzzle, which is he has to be blinded. You'll have to burn through all his legendary resistances. It's going to be tough. It's going to be frustrating. So make sure that it is epic. Make sure that they understand that this is a battle of wills, a battle of intelligence. So part of your responsibility is pacing this combat so that it doesn't end too soon, and try to avoid TPKing your party. I did it, it happens. I wasn't going to pull any punches. My party, we understand the way we play. I don't pull punches as a DM. They still loved it. They were frustrated that they lost, but they knew it was going to be tough going in. So after a couple rounds, definitely hint at the fact that he needs to see where he's going to be teleporting, and then that way they can start burning through those legendary resistances, trying to blind them. Hopefully they have abilities to blind Vecna. Otherwise, I don't know if it's possible to defeat him. So once Vecna is defeated, I felt like the ending in the book was pretty flat. There wasn't a lot to it. So I stole an idea from a book that I really like by the author Brandon Sanderson. Spoiler alert, if you plan on reading the original Mistborn trilogy, this is a spoiler for the second book, so go ahead and skip forward. I'll put a timestamp for where you should jump to. Near the end of the second Mistborn book, the main character has a chance to use a power to basically rewrite the universe, at least rewrite their world as she sees fit. And someone she loves is actively dying at the time, and she's supposed to resist that. She's supposed to not do it. So I had the idea that once Vecna's defeated, you can kind of tell your party that his ritual is still running for a minute. If they don't do anything, it'll fizzle out. Everything will remain the way it was. But if they wanted to, and this will be especially tempting for some players, especially players with a more selfish or evil bent, someone could step in and finish the ritual, and they could rewrite the multiverse as they see fit. Obviously, that's super powerful. But this is the end of a campaign. They're level 20 characters. They're going to be done after this. And I think it would be super fun to be able to talk amongst themselves and be like, hey, this is our chance. And they could make either small or quite large changes to your world building. If you're running this in your homebrew world and you're going to run the next campaign in the same setting, I think it would be a great chance for the players to have some input on the world building. But also I think it would be hilarious if the setting for the next campaign, the almighty god of the entire universe, is the previous character Fred, and everybody worships Lord Fred. That just fills my DM heart with joy. I didn't get a chance to do that because my main party died, and the party that actually defeated Vecna, they literally just ran this one chapter. But at that point, once your party, whether they slay him with the Sword of Cass or they use the Chime of Exile, Vecna is defeated, the multiverse is saved. Try not to TPK your party because that is unsatisfying. You want them to end as heroes. Give them the hints about his teleportation he needs to see. Hopefully they're able to get that blinding on him. This is going to be a super tough combat, but I highly recommend, especially if it's your first party you're running, try to make sure that they win. I'm not saying have him operate less optimally than he possibly could, but as a DM, the main goal is for your party to have fun, and getting TPK'd isn't a whole lot of fun. If I hadn't played with those guys a ton, I would not have done it to them, but I wanted to have a sincere experience so that I could help you guys run this better, and they all know that. Congratulations, you finished your first major campaign, or maybe your 10th. You are done with Vecna Eve of Ruin. It's time to celebrate. You and your party go eat some hot wings or whatever it is you like to do. If you made it this far in the video, throw me a like. If you want to keep up with other campaigns I'm doing breakdowns of, other videos I like to do, DM advice, feel free to subscribe. If you like what I do, if you like my videos, want to support me and help me keep making these videos, I have memberships live now. Shout out to my 2 channel members, GL and Sammy J. Thanks you guys. Your support is much appreciated. Making these videos isn't easy. It takes a lot of time and effort and money, and your guys' contribution really helps out. I also have a shop. You can buy this shirt. There's a bunch of funny D&D shirts on there you can buy. It has been great going through all of this with you guys. All of your comments, all of your support has really meant a lot to me. We're gonna keep going, doing other campaigns in the future. We're gonna do as much content as I possibly have time for. I love making these videos for you guys. Here's some other videos I've done that you might like. Thanks guys, and God bless you.